Okay, so my next video is just going to be on basic errors that people can make in this. So you got a lot of room for errors here. For example, you could just completely mess up your circuit, not solder anything in, or your circuit Kilroy board doesn't even work at all. Or maybe your piece of plastic here is deformed. Who knows what could happen. But some of the most common errors really involves the wheels, the sensors, and the circuit. So one really common error that most people do is, for example, if you look at my wheel right here, it's screwed on pretty straight, but I've kind of taken this screw off a little bit just to show you exactly how this could be messed up. So if you look at my servo, for example, like right about here, you can see that it's like perfectly aligned. You can't even see it, or you can barely see that little black section that's sticking out right there. So that is where a lot of errors come in, because some people just, or you have to get this perfectly aligned, and it could be a little bit off. And what that does is that it makes the robot kind of turn in that direction. So if this is off just like that way a little bit, so the servo is kind of a little bit crooked that way, your wheels could be turned in that way, and then your robot would just would be going in circles. And so what you have to watch out here is just making sure that it's perfectly straight, and that you can't, like, one way you can check is if you can see it over the edge right here. Like, if you can see it, then that's not good, unless you want it to be sticking out. But if you want it straight, you know, I advise you not to, just to keep this kind of square with the board, so it kind of helps you. So that's one of the errors. Another error actually involves the CD. So a lot of people, for example, in my robot, I actually just use screws and everything, so I didn't really have many errors with this, or I don't think I even had a single error with the actual CD and the main little component, like right here. What people usually do, instead of actually taking nails and actually drilling them into the CD and the little white circle here of plastic, what they do is they usually just hot glue it on. So what that can lead you to, like, that can completely mess up your wheels in a way that if you don't have it perfectly aligned and straight, and if you don't hold it down until it completely dries, you can have one of your wheels could be slightly off and more crooked. So that's just like the same concept as the servos not being aligned. Your wheels will just turn in one direction and it'll go in like a circle in a way. So that's one of the errors that I find most common. Another error is keeping this part straight too. If you notice right over here, you can see that it's pretty straight. Like, it forms a 90-degree angle about right around here. And it was pretty hard to get on originally. So one main thing you have to watch out for here is kind of burning your hands too. Because when you're putting this on, you'll probably be holding your board still, and you could accidentally move this over that way or the other way, and then the hot glue could get on your fingers, and that hurts. So what you want to really do here is just make sure you just lay a thin line of hot glue, so that there's not too much hot glue that's like pouring over the sides, so that you won't burn your fingers. But at the same time, there's just enough so that this can stay in, and you gotta hold this down as straight as possible for about 5 to 10 seconds, as I explained in my other video. So then the next error really comes with the servos. If you looked at my servo video on how to actually get these connected and everything, I explained exactly how some of these wires might not be fully connected, because it's pretty hard to actually get a couple wires through this, and at the same time, instead of hot gluing it, like soldering it together. So what might happen is that one of these wires, without you even knowing, might just come off just slightly, but just enough so that it's not actually connected. And so when that happens, your sensors are not going to work at all. So you gotta really be careful about that, and constantly check, make sure that it doesn't come out, and maybe pull on it just a little bit. You know, not too much. Make sure it doesn't break, because that's bad. So just pull on it a little bit maybe, and just test it out, see how well it's actually set in there. If it comes off, you know that you have to redo it. And so just to avoid that, like I said in my other video, just add as much solder as you can in here, not hot glue, so that you can easily take out the solder just in case. But at the same time, it's conducting material, so that it's easy. It's a conducting material, so you know it connects to this. So another error I found pretty common is, I guess, just with the circuit in general. So if I zoom in right around here, you can't really see my circuit well at all. But on a normal board, like this board is naturally black. It's not because of the spray paint, but the components on it are usually not this color. For example, you can hardly see these resistors, and what you can barely make out what they actually are. But if you look closely, the tops, it's the color sequence should be brown, orange, and orange. And the bottom should be black, red, black. But the main thing here is just, for example, when I was doing my circuit, Mr. Kosak had a diagram up on the board, so I just followed that. But if you don't, so if you look at my other circuit video, it should explain exactly how to get this circuit actually in. But then make sure that you don't have when you're soldering, you don't actually have too many like giant bubbles, or that it's actually connected. If you see what I did here, for example, right here, this is, I guess, one of my errors that I did, because I soldered it. I kept messing up when I was soldering this. So one of the copper plates underneath one of these lifted up. So when that happens, it doesn't actually conduct, and it's not connected really. So what I had to do is I had to take this wire, and I guess I should have cut it down just a little bit. But just for this demonstration, I just took this wire and cut off all the plastic from it, and just kind of laid it next to this, while I took some solder and just reconnected these together, because these two are supposed to be connected together, and since the copper plates lift off one of them, it wasn't connected. So that's one major error that could happen. So make sure you check that with the voltmeter or something. And then so basically make sure you don't, you have like good evenly shaped volcanoes and everything like that. Besides that, there shouldn't be too many other errors that you could really make. Of course, anything could happen, but those are basically the main errors. So if I zoom back out, that can actually occur. I guess one more not so common error that you would really find out here is, I guess, just this main piece of plastic. Like, it could be deformed, bent. If you look at mine, don't expose it to too much heat. But if you look at mine, it's pretty straight. I don't really see any unnatural bends in there. And that shouldn't be too hard to actually keep straight, as long as you don't have a heat gun around you that's on. And then this thing, I guess it's up to your choice for the exact shape. I made mine like this so that when it's actually kind of going like this, so when it's like the wheel's actually in, it has a way better shape. So for example, if it's just flat, the end of it might actually drag onto it and kind of stop it here and there. But if it's like this, kind of curved upwards, or like a cane almost, it's easier just because this area right here is pretty circular in a way, and I added some tape onto it so that it can go much easier on tiled surfaces.